It was a rainy and cold night when Lucas decided to participate in a charity event in the city's central square. The idea of helping with food collection wasn't exactly what he had planned for a Saturday night, but he felt the need to get out of his routine. The event was in full swing, with people rushing around and an atmosphere mixed between urgency and solidarity. Lucas was organizing the donations when, suddenly, one of the food boxes, poorly stacked, tipped over, spilling its contents across the floor. It was in this moment of chaos that Sophia appeared. She seemed a calming presence in the midst of the confusion, with a glow of determination and grace. Without hesitation, he began to help Lucas collect the scattered items. Her eyes sparkled with empathy and efficiency, and Lucas felt an immediate attraction to her. The way Sophia handled the situation so naturally made her stand out to him amidst the turmoil. As they worked together, they began to chat casually. Sophia spoke honestly about her motivations for helping with the event and her life experiences. Lucas, in turn, shared a little about his world, his doubts and aspirations. There was something enchanting about the way they connected, a rare feeling that Lucas had never experienced before. Every laugh and every look exchanged seemed to intensify the affinity between them. Even though their time together that night was brief, Lucas felt a deep connection with Sophia. His thoughts were agitated by the idea that she was different from anyone he had ever met. When the event ended, Lucas, overcome by a mixture of courage and certainty, made an unexpected request. He wanted to know if Sophia would go out with him on a date. Although surprised by the intensity of the request, Sophia accepted with a promising smile. As he waited for his date, Lucas couldn't stop thinking about the instant connection he felt with Sophia. He was so sure of his feelings that he began to imagine a future with her, despite barely knowing her. Every little conversation and every interaction seemed to confirm his belief that she was the perfect partner, a belief he was eager to explore further. Thus, the unexpected meeting, which began amid confusion, became the starting point of a new journey full of promises. Lucas was about to embark on a daring adventure, driven by a deep and unexpected feeling that Sophia could be the answer to all his questions about love and happiness. Lucas decided that the moment he proposed marriage to Sophia should be as unforgettable as the proposal itself. He chose a small and charming botanical garden, a place that exuded tranquility and romance. The garden was lit by a series of paper lanterns that cast a soft, warm glow over the flowers in full bloom. The trees were adorned with small fairy lights, creating a magical and intimate setting. As they walked along the flower-filled paths, Lucas guided Sophia to a gazebo decorated with rose petals and scented candles. The atmosphere was filled with a soft piano melody that seemed to be the perfect finishing touch for the occasion. Sophia looked around with visible enchantment, absorbing the beauty of the scene. His eyes were full of curiosity and a faint smile danced on his lips, not knowing what was coming. When they reached the center of the gazebo, Lucas took a deep breath and knelt in front of Sophia, with an expression of determination and affection. The unexpected gesture made Sophia's heart beat faster. He held a small velvet box in his hands, and opening it revealed an engagement ring that sparkled under the soft lights. Lucas looked at Sophia with a look full of emotion. His words flowed with sincerity and a vulnerability that only true love can bring. From the moment we met, I knew there was something special between us. Lucas began, his voice shaking slightly. In you, I found someone with whom I want to spend the rest of my life. Every day by your side has been a wonderful adventure, and I can't imagine a future without you by my side. Sophia, will you marry me? Sophia, completely surprised and touched by Lucas' sincerity, looked at the ring with shining eyes and tears of joy. Surprise gave way to a radiant smile that lit up his face. His response, although emotionally charged, was immediate and full of love. Yes, Lucas, I accept. His words were a whisper of happiness, confirming how they both felt about each other. With the ring placed carefully on Sophia's finger, the couple embraced, enveloped in a feeling of euphoria and accomplishment. The surroundings seemed to celebrate with them, the lights of the lanterns twinkling in a pattern of joy, and the flowers seemed to shine even more brightly. They were both eager to start planning their future together, dreaming about their next steps and the new life they were about to build. Lucas, now with new energy and enthusiasm, was eager to share the news with his family. He felt it was essential that they meet the woman who had stolen his heart and who he believed to be his soulmate. His desire to introduce Sophia to his family, with the certainty that she would be well received and loved, was a reflection of the deep respect and love he had for her and the life they were about to begin together. The introductory dinner was carefully planned to reflect the importance of the moment. Lucas's parents' house, an elegant and welcoming residence with a traditional facade, was adorned with exquisite details. The dining room has been transformed into a scene of sophistication and warmth, with a long table covered in a pristine white tablecloth, decorated with a rush of fresh flowers and scented candles. The soft light from the chandeliers created an atmosphere of intimacy and expectation. When Sophia arrived, she was greeted at the door by Paula, Lucas's mother, a gentle-looking woman with an appraising but warm look. Paula was dressed in an elegant navy blue dress, which flattered her figure and made her look even more inviting. She greeted Sophia with a friendly hug and a smile, but Paula's attentive gaze did not go unnoticed. Ricardo, Lucas's father, was a man of striking presence, with a firm posture and an expression of curiosity and fear. He was dressed impeccably, in a dark suit and tie that demonstrated his desire to make a good impression. Clara, Lucas's sister, was a vibrant and energetic young woman, dressed in a flowery dress that reflected her outgoing personality. She was eager to meet Sophia and made a point of demonstrating her friendliness through lively conversation and curious questions. The table was filled with sophisticated dishes and carefully selected drinks, creating a sense of celebration but also formality. The tension was palpable, although everyone tried to maintain cordiality. As dinner progressed, the conversation between Sophia and Lucas' family began promisingly. Paula and Ricardo asked questions about Sophia's life, her origins and her interests, while Clara tried to ease the tension with jokes and anecdotes. However, as the hours passed, the atmosphere began to change. Small comments and increasingly pointed questions revealed an underlying concern about Sophia's compatibility and future with Lucas's family. Paula, in particular, began to make subtle observations about differences in values and expectations, while Ricardo remained reserved but clearly evaluated Sophia's every response. Clara, in turn, seemed to try to mediate the situation, but her attempts were not enough to hide the growing tension. The atmosphere that had previously been one of warmth and enthusiasm now became more tense, with moments of awkward silence interrupted only by the clicks of cutlery and the distant sound of soft music in the background. Sophia, although visibly uncomfortable, tried to maintain her composure and answer questions with grace and sincerity. The pressure of being judged by people so important to Lucas was evident in her posture and the tone of her voice. Lucas, sitting next to her, watched with concern, trying to balance his loyalty and love for Sophia with his desire to maintain family peace and harmony. As the dinner drew to a close, the atmosphere was filled with a mix of emotions. The formality of the event had given way to a sense of apprehension, and interactions were marked by a constant effort to maintain appearances and avoid conflict. Lucas' desire to see Sophia welcomed by her family seemed distant, and concern about the future of the relationship hovered over everyone, as the dinner came to an end with a tone of uncertainty. Dinner, which began with the promise of a peaceful, cozy night, soon turned into an emotional battlefield. As soon as the first dishes were served and the conversation flowed, the tension subtly began to manifest. Paula, with her attentive and almost investigative look, didn't miss an opportunity to evaluate every detail of Sophia's answers. Her tone, which was initially friendly, began to reveal a hint of distrust, as she asked questions about Sophia's past and her motivations for accepting the marriage proposal. Ricardo, sitting at the head of the table, followed the interaction with an analytical and reserved look. Although his voice was calm and measured, his questions had a more pointed tone. He questioned Sophia about her financial stability, her family background, and even her personal ambitions. The questions, although polite, carried a weight that was beginning to show in Sophia, who was trying to maintain her composure but seemed increasingly uncomfortable under the pressure. Clara, Lucas's sister, was far from being a neutral mediator. His lively behavior from earlier in the evening had given way to a more provocative role. With keen curiosity, she asked personal and embarrassing questions that had clearly been prepared with the intention of testing Sophia's limits. His comments were often accompanied by a wry smile, which only added to the discomfort and feeling of being under intense judgment. The atmosphere around the table became charged, with every word and response becoming a piece in a game of tension and discomfort. Interactions that had previously been smooth and diplomatic were now punctuated by a subtext of distrust and skepticism. The formal dinner setting turned into a field of critical observation, where Sophia's every gesture and response were examined and discussed. Sophia, visibly affected by the change in the tone of the questions, tried to remain calm and articulate, but her nervousness was evident. She responded carefully, trying to strike a balance between honesty and diplomacy while dealing with increasing pressure from Paula and Ricardo, who seemed relentless in their search for flaws or discrepancies in her story. Lucas, who had started the night with an expression of pride and expectation, was now clearly distressed. He found himself caught between the desire to defend his fiancée and respect for his parents and sister. Their efforts to defuse the situation and steer the conversation towards more neutral topics seemed in vain, while the tension only increased with each new question and comment. Dinner reached a breaking point, with forced smiles and awkward silences becoming more and more frequent. The atmosphere of cordiality that had started the night had dissipated, leaving a trail of frustration and discomfort. The family confrontation was at full boil, and Sophia and Lucas' future seemed more uncertain than ever as the night progressed. As the dinner progressed and the atmosphere became charged, a new and unexpected whirlwind of revelations began to unfold. The awkward silence that had taken over the table was interrupted by a direct question from Paula, who, with an apparently casual tone, brought up a subject that no one expected. "Sophia, you mentioned that you worked in several places before meeting us. Could you tell us more about that?" His question, although it seemed harmless, carried an underlying weight that began to pressure Sophia in an unexpected way. Sophia, feeling the pressure and expectation that hung in the air, hesitated for a moment before responding. She took a deep breath and began sharing details about a difficult phase in her life, including precarious jobs and complicated relationships she had faced over the years. Each word seemed to weigh more heavily on the already dense atmosphere, and Lucas' family's reactions soon appeared. Paula frowned, and Ricardo adjusted his posture in the chair, showing increasing discomfort. Clara, observing the scene with a mixture of curiosity and veiled pleasure, did not miss the opportunity to intervene. "So, you really went through so much hardship? Doesn't it make you question your choices and what it could mean for the future?" His provocation, loaded with a critical tone, only increased Sophia's discomfort. Clara's questions began to sound more like disguised accusations, and the atmosphere around the table became even more tense. Sophia tried to stand her ground, but it was clear that the revelation of her past was affecting her emotional state. She explained that her difficult experiences had shaped who she was today, emphasizing that she was in a much better and more stable place in her life. However, every effort to defend his career seemed to be in vain, with Lucas' family increasingly inclined to focus on the negative aspects that emerged in his stories. Ricardo, who had been silent during most of the conversation, finally decided to speak out. With a voice filled with skepticism, he directly asked Sophia about her ability to deal with the challenges that could arise in the future. His question, although formulated rationally, carried an implicit criticism and a deep doubt about Sophia's ability to integrate into the family harmoniously. The impact of the revelations was palpable, and the dynamics at the table seemed to have completely changed. What had begun as an attempt at acceptance and welcome was now turning into a critical analysis of Sophia's life. Every member of the family now seemed to evaluate every word and gesture with a critical lens, leaving Sophia feeling exposed and vulnerable. As the night unfolded, the atmosphere of cordiality completely dissipated. The dinner, which had begun with the hope of a harmonious introduction, became an emotional battlefield, with Sophia's past life taking center stage and generating a new level of tension and insecurity for everyone around the table. The atmosphere was charged with tension and discomfort as Sophia's revelations reached their climax, and Lucas found himself at the epicenter of a profound emotional crisis. Sitting at the head of the table, his face was a mixture of confusion and worry, reflecting the internal struggle he was facing. His eyes alternated between Sophia, who was visibly shaken, and her family, whose expressions ranged from disapproval to skepticism. Lucas felt the weight of expectations on both sides, and it was starting to affect his ability to make a clear decision. With a visible effort, Lucas tried to remain calm and rational. He got up from the table and asked for a moment of privacy to think. Going out into the garden, where the night breeze offered momentary relief, Lucas was faced with a whirlwind of thoughts. His heart was divided between loyalty to Sophia, the woman he believed to be his life partner, and the need to maintain harmony with his family, which had always been a fundamental part of his existence. In the silence of the garden, Lucas pondered the words of his mother, Paula, and Clara's provocations. He remembered Sophia's stories and how she had worked hard to overcome the adversities in her life. The sight of Sophia, struggling to hold herself upright under the pressure of relentless judgment, made Lucas question whether he was acting fairly. The love he felt for her seemed unshakable, but the doubt and insecurity about his family's acceptance accumulated like a dark cloud over his heart. At the same time, Lucas felt pressure from his father, Ricardo, whose coldness and direct questions made him feel as if he were at the center of a family court. Ricardo, with his penetrating gaze and subtle criticisms, had challenged Lucas's determination towards Sophia. The doubt that Ricardo had sown in his mind seemed to grow, and Lucas found himself struggling to balance his personal feelings with his father's expectations. As he walked through the garden, Lucas tried to visualize a future where he could reconcile his family's wishes with his life with Sophia. The idea of having to choose between two such important parts of his life disturbed him deeply. He wondered if he could find a solution that would allow both sides to find some kind of understanding, or if he was condemned to a painful and definitive choice. Finally, Lucas returned to the dining room, visibly calmer, but with his resolve still hazy. He looked at Sophia, who was watching him with a mixture of hope and despair, and at his family, whose expressions showed no signs of softening. The pressure was palpable, and Lucas knew that any decision he made now would have significant consequences. He needed to find a way to communicate his feelings without causing further rifts, and that seemed like a monumental task. Upon taking his seat again, Lucas prepared to face the situation with a delicate strategy. He tried to express his love for Sophia and his understanding of the family's concerns, but the dilemma was far from being resolved. His internal struggle was far from over, and the future of his relationship with Sophia and his family's acceptance remained in an unstable balance, waiting for a resolution that seemed increasingly distant. The atmosphere in the dining room was charged with an electric, almost palpable atmosphere as arguments and disagreements began to take shape. Lucas and Sophia sat at the table, now once again surrounded by Paula, Ricardo, and Clara. The words began to intertwine in a chaos of raw and challenging emotions. The environment, previously formal and contained, now pulsed with the tension of unspoken words and repressed feelings, revealing each person's inner turmoil. Paula was the first to break the silence with a sharp voice, expressing her discomfort and disappointment with the revelations about Sophia's past. "Don't you think you should have been more honest from the beginning?" she questioned, her voice brimming with hurt and resentment. His penetrating gaze fixed on Sophia, daring her to explain the choices in her life that now seemed so problematic. The implied accusation made Sophia flinch, her hands shaking slightly as she tried to formulate a response. Ricardo, observing the scene with an almost glacial coldness, intervened with a question that was more of an accusation. "Do you really think our family will accept someone with that kind of past? What guarantees us that you won't cause more problems?" His question echoed around the room, amplifying the feeling of rejection and making Sophia feel increasingly isolated. Lucas, trying to mediate the situation, felt the pressure of having to protect the woman he loved while facing his parents' disapproval. Clara, not wanting to be left out of the discussion, made her entrance with a series of subtle provocations, deepening the wound even further. "It seems you have a very convenient way of explaining everything," she shot back with biting irony. His words were like sharp blades, directly hitting Sophia's insecurities and accentuating the feeling of betrayal and helplessness. The tension between Clara and Sophia was becoming almost unbearable, with hostility growing with each exchange of words. Lucas, who was trying to maintain his composure, found himself between a rock and a hard place. His eyes darted between Sophia and her family, trying to understand and reconcile the opposing feelings that were being expressed. His desire to defend Sophia and, at the same time, the need to appease his family created turmoil within him. The frustration on his face was evident as he tried to find words that could defuse the situation without increasing the tension even further. As the discussion progressed, emotions erupted in a series of impassioned accusations and defenses. Sophia, feeling increasingly vulnerable, tried to explain her past decisions and reasons truthfully, but Lucas' family's hostility seemed intransigent. His efforts to justify himself ended up sounding like desperate attempts, amplifying the frustration and despair building in the room. At the end of the night, the room was immersed in an oppressive silence. The words had been spoken, the wounds opened and the feelings exposed. Lucas was exhausted and disoriented, unable to find a clear solution to the impasse. The divide between his love for Sophia and his family's expectations seemed deeper than ever, leaving everyone in the room to ponder the impact of the arguments and what the future could hold for them. Night fell over Lucas's parents' house like a heavy blanket, and the built-up tension seemed almost tangible in the air. After a series of heated arguments and painful disagreements, a pivotal event was approaching that would force Lucas and Sophia to face the unvarnished truth about their relationship. The decisive moment came unexpectedly, when a disturbing phone call interrupted the charged silence in the room. The high-pitched sound of the telephone seemed to announce the arrival of a new crisis. Lucas answered the phone with an expression of apprehension, while Sophia watched the scene with a mixture of hope and fear. The conversation, although inaudible to others present, seemed to be the catalyst for something significant. When Lucas hung up, his expression was pale and his body seemed tense. The phone call had brought news from an old friend of Sophia's, who revealed disturbing details about her past. The revelation, although unexpected, was about to alter the course of the night. The atmosphere was filled with expectant silence as Lucas processed the information received. He turned to Sophia with a look that mixed pain and confusion, demanding an explanation. "We need to talk about this now," he said, his voice tense and firm. All eyes turned to Sophia, who was visibly shaken by the new emotional burden. The moment was critical, as the recent revelations had turned the conversation toward an inevitable confrontation. Sophia, with tears in her eyes, tried to explain the situation honestly, but her words seemed to echo in a vacuum of distrust. She revealed intimate and personal details about the difficulties she faced in the past, trying to put the new information into context. Her voice was shaking, and she struggled to hold herself together as her feelings were laid bare in front of everyone. The room was thick with a mix of empathy and judgment, and Sophia's difficulty communicating her truth only deepened the divide. As the conversation progressed, Lucas faced an internal crisis. He was torn between his loyalty to Sophia and his family's constant worries. The revelation of the phone call ignited a fire that burned both within him and around him. The desire to protect Sophia and the desire to secure her family's approval were in constant conflict, creating a painful and confusing dilemma. His eyes searched for a solution, but the situation seemed increasingly complex and less clear. The tension in the room reached a breaking point when Clara made an incisive comment, questioning the authenticity of Sophia's feelings and the seriousness of her explanations. "How can we believe you now?" she challenged, her voice cutting like sharp blades. This final attack was the trigger for an emotional explosion, with Sophia and Lucas trying to deal with the weight of the situation. Emotions were running high, and the sense of urgency was palpable. At the height of tension, Lucas made a definitive decision. He asked for time to reflect on the future of his relationship with Sophia, recognizing that there was no more room for compromise or ambiguity. The night came to an end with a feeling of uncertainty, leaving everyone in the room to ponder the next steps. The decisive moment had forced each of them to confront their true emotions and make a crucial decision about what to do next. After the storm of emotions and revelations, the atmosphere in Lucas's parents' house began to calm down, and a fragile hope of resolution began to take shape. The scenario was far from ideal, but Lucas and Sophia's determination to overcome adversity was palpable. The night before had been a whirlwind of accusations and disagreements, but now the focus shifted to trying to resolve outstanding issues and find common ground where everyone could understand each other. Lucas, with a resolute expression and an aura of newfound calm, proposed a meeting with his family and Sophia. It was a conscious effort to turn the situation around and bring clarity to the tumultuous sea of feelings. Sitting around the kitchen table, the soft light from the lamps created a more intimate and less threatening environment, ideal for a heart-to-heart conversation. Each was aware that honest communication was the key to finding a solution that could work for everyone. Sophia, her voice full of sincerity and vulnerability, began to talk about her true intentions and the impact that constant judgment was having on her. She addressed Lucas's family's concerns with patience, providing context that had previously been misinterpreted. Her words were filled with genuine emotion, and the effort she made to explain her perspective seemed to begin to soften the hardened hearts of Paula, Ricardo, and Clara. Lucas, alongside Sophia, made a passionate appeal about her importance in his life. He highlighted the support and strength that Sophia offered him and how her qualities had enriched his own life. With raw sincerity, Lucas asked his family to look beyond appearances and first impressions, seeking to understand Sophia's true value. His plea was a reflection of the deep connection he felt and the need for everyone to find a way to peacefully coexist. The reconciliation process began to gain strength when Paula, initially the most resistant, began to show signs of opening up. She shared her own insecurities and worries, admitting that fear of the unknown had fueled her critical behavior. Ricardo, with a more considered stance, also began to recognize that Lucas's love for Sophia was genuine and deserved a chance to be evaluated from a new perspective. Clara, still skeptical, observed the development of the situation with a more critical eye, but her defensive posture began to soften. She made an effort to listen and understand Sophia's point of view, realizing that her initial resistance was damaging the family dynamic. The conversation became a fertile field for empathy and mutual understanding, allowing barriers of mistrust and resentment to begin to break down. As the dialogue progressed, a sense of resolution began to emerge. Lucas's family, although still not completely convinced, began to accept Sophia's presence as a valid part of their life. Recognizing his qualities and the importance of the relationship for Lucas were significant steps towards restoring harmony. The reconciliation process was not instantaneous, but the willingness to find a middle ground paved the way for a new chapter, where everyone could seek deeper understanding and more peaceful coexistence. A few weeks had passed since the intense and emotional resolution of the conflicts, and life in Lucas and Sophia's house was beginning to adjust to a new normality. The initial tension had given way to a sense of relief and hope. The scenario had changed. The old atmosphere of distrust and judgment was dissipating, and a new chapter was being written in the story of everyone involved. Lucas and Sophia, now more united than ever, were ready to build a future together, despite the challenges they had faced. The day began to dawn on a new routine, and adaptation to the new dynamics was in full swing. Lucas's parents' house, once a stage for arguments and misunderstandings, was transformed into a space of gradual acceptance. Paula and Ricardo, with a conscious effort, began to open up to the qualities and value that Sophia brought to Lucas's life. It was a slow process, but the signs of acceptance were visible, like a sun slowly rising after a storm. Lucas and Sophia were finding joy in the little things, like weekend trips and quiet nights shared. The couple was investing in their dreams and future plans, with renewed confidence and a new vision for their lives. The strength they had found in their union served as a solid foundation for facing the challenges that arose, and the vision of a shared future became increasingly clear and exciting. Family gatherings, once marked by tension and discomfort, now began to transform into more pleasant occasions. Clara, who had previously been the most skeptical, began to build a more positive relationship with Sophia. Conversations were now more open and interactions were less tense. Sophia's acceptance was becoming a reality, and the family was finding ways to adapt to her presence more naturally. The process of integrating Sophia into the lives of Lucas and his family was a challenge, but also an opportunity for growth and learning for everyone. The family learned to value and recognize Sophia's contributions and positive impact on Lucas' life. The empathy and understanding that had been cultivated during difficult times was now creating a space of harmony and mutual respect. As time progressed, Lucas and Sophia's lives were beginning to reflect a new stability and happiness. They were creating memories together, celebrating achievements and facing challenges as a team. The journey that began with doubts and difficulties was now turning into a story of love and commitment, where each day was a new opportunity to strengthen their relationship and build a promising future. The epilogue to this story is a testament to how love and perseverance can overcome significant obstacles. Lucas and Sophia, now stronger and more connected than ever, were living their own version of a happy ending. Sophia's integration into Lucas' family was proof that, with patience, understanding, and openness, even the most challenging situations can lead to a new beginning full of possibilities and hope.